They say history is written in stone, but sometimes it's laid in brick by hands that knew the meaning of legacy. I moved into my grandfather's old home, looking for peace. But what I found was a fight I never saw coming, a neighborhood ruled by silence, fear, and one woman's grip on power. This isn't just about a driveway. It's about standing up when the past is under threat, and the truth is buried beneath concrete. When I moved into my late grandfather's old brick house in Roseview Heights, I wasn't chasing nostalgia. I was chasing silence. After years of grinding corporate hours and a divorce that hollowed me out, I craved stillness, the kind only my grandfather's home had ever given me. It was the kind of place where mornings smelled like old pine and fresh coffee, and the wind still carried the laughter of old stories. The brick driveway was the first thing I saw when I arrived. My grandfather laid it himself in the 70s, each brick placed with calloused hands and quiet pride. As I rolled my suitcase over its uneven surface, I felt something close to peace. That feeling lasted exactly 11 days. A knock on my door came just after sunrise. Evelyn Carter, president of the local HOA, stood there with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her perfectly manicured lawn was legendary, her authority undisputed. She introduced herself in a tone reserved for school principals and parole officers. "There's a matter we need to address," she said, glancing past me like she already owned the place. "Your driveway. It doesn't meet HOA standards." I blinked, confused. "It's been here for 50 years. She smiled tighter. "Exactly the problem." I tried to explain the history, even showed her an old photo of my grandfather kneeling over the bricks in the summer of '74. But Evelyn didn't care. She gave me a 30-day notice to replace it with uniform concrete. No exceptions. When I asked to see the bylaws, she told me they were only accessible to board members. "We don't want confusion among residents," she said. That night, I sat on the porch staring at the bricks. My grandfather's legacy was under attack. I didn't have much, but I had that. So I fought back. First, I filed a formal request to review the HOA's governing documents. It was ignored. Then I started talking to neighbors. Most were cautious, others bitter. An older woman named Mrs. Langley wept when I asked if she'd had trouble with the HOA. She'd lost her savings paying fines over non-compliant shutters. Joe Padilla, 2 doors down, had been written up for throwing his daughter's birthday party because more than 10 guests violated community event limits. I started recording Evelyn's visits, her threats, her contradictions. I documented everything. But the real shift came when I called my father. He and I hadn't spoken much since Mom passed. He was a quiet man, always more at home on construction sites than in conversations. But he listened. I told him about Evelyn, about the HOA's abuse of power, about the driveway. After a long pause, he said only, "Send me everything, and keep recording." What I didn't mention to Evelyn or anyone was that my father, Daniel Knox, was the founder and CEO of Knox Land Construction. He'd built half the homes in Roseview Heights, including Evelyn's. 3 days later, Evelyn returned with police officers and an emergency eviction notice. She claimed I was in breach of HOA compliance and community safety protocols. She looked triumphant. I invited them all inside. Then I played the footage. It showed Evelyn and her husband sneaking onto my property at 2 a.m., attempting to pry up the bricks with a crowbar. One officer glanced at her, then at the video, then back at me. "Ma'am, this is attempted vandalism," he said. She turned pale. He tried to speak. Couldn't. The next morning, things escalated. Evelyn called the construction division, demanding a citywide compliance check on my property. What she didn't realize was that the call routed through Knoxland headquarters. The receptionist politely informed her that Mr. Knox was currently in a meeting investigating board misconduct in Roseview Heights. That's when neighbors started coming forward. Marta, a retired librarian with a sharp memory and sharper instincts, had documented Evelyn's harassment for over a year. She showed me her files, timed notes. Printed emails, even hidden camera footage. One image stood out, a bid approval form with Evelyn's signature, authorizing yet another contract for her husband's paving company. The price: 3 times the market rate. My father called in legal counsel. The next week, a certified letter arrived at Evelyn's house, informing her that a special board meeting had been called to review allegations of misconduct, fraud, and selective enforcement. The night before that meeting, Evelyn made one last move. A neighbor named Rachel called me at 1:30 a.m., whispering, "There's a bulldozer outside your driveway." I raced outside. A crew of men were unloading equipment. I arrived just in time. Police followed minutes later. I had security footage. Evelyn, standing behind the crew, giving quiet orders. One officer asked if I had proof of her involvement. I showed him the footage and the delivery receipt for muriatic acid, ordered to my address under Evelyn's name. Forensic tests later confirmed her plan was to destroy the bricks irreparably. At the emergency meeting, the community hall was packed. My father stood beside me, wearing his old company jacket from 1975. There was something different in him more than anger. It was grief. Maybe, for what this place had become. He presented findings, forged votes, unauthorized fines, illegal contracts, and community intimidation. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The evidence did that for him. When he finished, he looked Evelyn in the eye and said, "You can resign quietly, or you can face a criminal investigation." She didn't answer, just collapsed into a chair and covered her face. 6 months later, Evelyn sold her house and left town. The HOA bylaws were rewritten with input from residents. Board members were now required to undergo legal training. Marta was elected president. Fines had to be approved by majority vote. Transparency became a rule, not a favor. The driveway. It still stands. My father and I rebuilt it together. Brick by brick, reinforced it, preserved it. Some mornings, neighbors pass by and nod. Sometimes stop to admire it. What used to be a battleground has become a monument to legacy, resistance, and quiet victory. I sit on the porch most days now, coffee in hand, feeling the silence I once chased. But it's not empty anymore. It's earned. And every time I see a kid riding a bike down the bricks my grandfather laid, I smile, because Evelyn tried to bury history in concrete. Instead, she built the path to her own downfall.